Hi, this is Mr. Mullaney with a lesson recap. Jefferson's Administration Part 1. This deck of slides was prepared by my student teacher, Mr. Colin Boyle. Thanks, Mr. Boyle. All right, so Jefferson comes to power after the hotly disputed election of 1800, after the U.S. House of Representatives decides the election in Jefferson's favor rather than Aaron Burr's. Hamilton throws his support behind Jefferson. He doesn't like either of them. He disagrees with both of them politically, but Burr is a scoundrel, an opinion that Hamilton had that history seems to validate and was pretty widespread as well. And so Jefferson is president, and he's all about reducing the size of government. The thought back then, big government. Today we associate big government with some things. We associate it with some bad things, such as inefficiency and bureaucracy. Which not necessarily a bad word, but can be as far as complicated processes and red tape. But we also associate big government with benefits, with the New Deal, with things that help people. Back then, big government meant monarchy. It meant king. It meant we don't get to make decisions. The king gets to make decisions. And so Jefferson was very, very opposed to big government. He reduces taxes. He slashes the size of the army. He does keep the Bank of the United States. The charter was set to expire in 1811, so he decided, it's probably just easier. We'll just keep it, and it will eventually run its course. So Jefferson and the West, they do pass some laws to encourage settlement. The Land Act of 1800, technically right before Jefferson comes to office, but then executed by Jefferson, encourages people to settle west. And speaking of settling west, you have the Louisiana Purchase. So the more people settle west, the more and more the United States is reliant on the Mississippi River, and specifically where the delta, where it exits the continent and goes into the Gulf of Mexico. That's a city called New Orleans. Jefferson wants to buy New Orleans. However, what happens is Jefferson sends his Secretary of State Monroe to negotiate it. And he says, don't pay more than $10 million for this. And by the way, when we talk, and so what happens is Napoleon, and we'll talk about why he does this in a minute. Napoleon says, take the whole Louisiana Territory. And by Louisiana Territory, we mean this area. What it is all the land west of the Mississippi, and this is the Mississippi, the east border of this green area, drained by the Mississippi to the west of the Mississippi, because all the land east of the Mississippi drained by it, the United States already has. This is the Louisiana Territory. And you see how huge this is. And theoretically, it goes up into Canada, although that'll get resolved. This part obviously becomes Canada later. So Monroe, they don't know what to do, but they decide, we have to do this. This is a great deal. We're going to do it. And so the reason was that you have your Haitian rebellion succeeds. That makes Napoleon think, I should really get out of North America. Plus, he's fighting the Napoleonic Wars. He doesn't have time to worry about North America, and he needs money. So you put those factors together, and Napoleon wants to sell. He wants to get out. He wants to sell, and that's what happens. Jefferson's a little hesitant at first. I'll put in the video links below. Tom Ritchie has a great point about this. So this is presented as a big historical controversy. Jefferson, big land, big government, big land grab. How could Jefferson, of all people, justify this? Tom Ritchie argues that, look, it's constitutional. Treaties were understood to frequently include sales of land. So therefore, that power is given to the president to negotiate them. And so therefore, this really wasn't that big a deal. And this is a bigger deal than Jefferson. Jefferson and others later make it into a big deal. But either way, it's approved. And the nation, as you can see, doubles in size. This is what it had been before. This is what's added to it. However, most of this is really unknown to American settlers at this time. They don't know what it is. And so we have to have an expedition to explore it, and you get Lewis and Clark. And what happens is they gather information, they make contact with the natives, and they are accompanied by a Shoshone woman, Sacagawea. There's a number of ways to pronounce her name. And I'm not sure exactly which one is correct. Okay, she becomes their guide. She becomes invaluable to them. In November of 1805, after going through the Rocky Mountains must have been a huge disappointment. They get through the plains, they're making progress, they find they're going the right way, and they find that they get into the Rocky Mountains. It was very, very difficult and arduous for them, but they finally get it. What they do in the course of this and their return, they discover hundreds of plants and animals. They make contact with important native tribes. They were looking for the Northwest Passage just as explorers had. Spoiler alert, it doesn't exist, so they never found that. So in that sense, it was disappointing, but there was no easy Northwest Passage to be found. So that is a lesson recap. Jefferson Administration Part 1. Thank you, Mr. Boyle, for designing this deck of slides.